Okay, so yeah, just state your name and then let's go for it.
Okay. Okay. Hello, my name is Dr. Perez, and I'm a local volunteer representative for the Foundation for Wellness Professionals. And it's a nonprofit organization just like the Red Cross. And the purpose of the foundation is to educate people on disease and injury topics through workshops and lectures. I am a holistic wellness practitioner, and I have a clinic in Pasadena, and I help people with digestive issues, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, hormonal issues. I work with autistic kids with allergies and sensitivities and gut issues and neurological issues. And I'm also a board certified chiropractor, as well as I'm also in the acupuncture program at South Baylor University. And I'm finishing up my studies with that right now. So that's about me. And so today what we're going to be talking about is sensory exercises, physical exercises, and how to improve brain function. Okay, and there's basically when it comes to the brain, we have what's called the right side of the brain, the right hemisphere, and we have the left hemisphere, and each side does different things. Okay. Generally, when doctors, they look at symptoms. When it comes to like ADHD, they say the child or person has attention issues. If it's dyslexia, it's like reading issues. If it's autism, then it's like communication issues. Okay, so everyone has all these different type of symptoms depending if it's this or that. And so instead of looking at the symptoms, you want to look, is it a right brain issue, a right brain deficiency, or a left brain deficiency? And I'll go more into detail on that, okay? So when there's a right brain or a left brain, we call it functional disconnection syndrome. So one side is not as mature as the other side, or needs to get up to more speed, okay? Or basically it's the one side is not electrically balanced, or it's not synchronized. So that's what the functional disconnection syndrome means. One side is like a higher functioning side, one's a less underactive side. And so what happens is when you get that one side to speed up, to catch up, then the symptoms start to go away. So that the goal is to get the sensory, to stimulate the senses for that one side so it can catch up, and then symptoms start to disappear. And when the right brain and the left brain work together, they're like in harmony, it's like an orchestra. Okay, it's playing music. Or when one side is not as mature, then the other side starts to tune out. So by using exercises and sensory exercises, then the other side starts to catch up, and then they're both balanced. So that's the main thing. Also, the children, when they're using their senses, normally they might use just one sense, okay? Instead of sight, hearing, sound, they tend to use one or two, because when there's too many, they become overwhelmed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a handout, okay? And then we're going to go out the handout later on, okay? But I want to give it to you. It'll be easier to talk about. So the goal is to get the brain to change, and basically we want to get it physically and chemically changed through the proper stimulation. And it's been seen through brain scans that when you give the proper stimulation, that weaker side starts to grow and speeds up and becomes faster. And then it becomes to work as a whole. So when it comes to the right brain and the left brain, how do you know if your child has a left brain deficiency or right brain deficiency? We're going to talk about that later on, okay? But I just wanted to keep that in mind. And also what you need to do is to look to see if there's any nutritional deficiencies, and also to examine family lifestyle and home environment to make them more positive. And we'll go over things that you can do at home. Okay? Also, you want to find out if there's any like toxicities, like heavy metals or chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, or any food additives that can also affect a child. Okay.
Do you feel like there's reliable tests for those to measure those things?
I'm
now?
sorry?
Do you feel like there's reliable tests to measure those certain things like toxicity? That
Yes, yeah. There's heavy metal tests. There's urine tests. There's allergy tests for allergies, true allergies, which is a test for an IgE, and then for sensitivities for food, there's a test called an IgG, which tests sensitivities. An allergy is where you eat something and you get a rash, or you respond right away to it, a reaction. A sensitivity is when it takes time. So you can eat something, but you don't know until like 5 days later. So it's much harder to detect what caused it because it responds. It takes more time for it to be seen. Okay. So children's brains, you can change. Okay. When you're born, a baby's brain is about 12 ounces, and it's about 25% size. Okay. And the brain is the only organ that's not fully formed at birth. Okay, it's basically, we have right here what's called the brain stem, and the baby when born can poop, eat, sleep. It's the survival mechanisms. Okay, and as it grows, it grows, and then it goes from the bottom up. So then more of the critical thinking starts. Okay, and the brain growth starts at 40 days after conception. That's when it starts. And again, it starts from the bottom up. And at age 2, it's 80% developed. And by age 6, it's 90% developed. And by 10, it's pretty much fully developed. And what the brain needs is it needs oxygen. It needs fuel and stimulation. And the fuel is the oxygen. Okay, and it needs glucose. The glucose feeds the brain. But you need stimulation, like here at the gym, movement to stimulate the brain. So it's very critical you need both of those two items. And here you have the trampolines, you've got all these movement, and this is incredible equipment you have. And I'll explain why it's so powerful as we continue. So there was a research done by Baylor College of Medicine, and what this is about in Romania, where it was at an orphanage where these kids, they weren't hugged, they weren't touched, they weren't smiled at all. And what happened was every single one of these kids that was not touched, there was no sensory involvement, and so they had learning disabilities, every single one of them. So sensory is very important. Senses drives the stimulation of the brain. So movement is incredibly important, such as light, sound, vibration, odor, taste, temperature, and touch. And what makes it successful is when you have a lot of duration, you have the intensity and the frequency. So you need all those stimulations for things to happen. So I'm going to talk about the right brain, okay? So on the right brain, if you look at the handout here, it talks about the brain activities, and that's the big picture, okay? So what I mean by that is when you have the activities of the right brain when it's fully functioning, it sees, like if you're seeing a forest, it'll see the forest, but it won't see the trees because it gets the big picture, okay? It also has to do with nonverbal communication, so it knows body language. So when you're smiling or sad, it understands nonverbal communication. And it also has to do with the large muscle control. So when you have a strong right brain, the large muscle control means like your paraspinal muscles, all the big muscles. Okay? And so when it comes to the gym, this is really powerful because when you stimulate these muscles here and the movement muscles, that stimulates the right side of the brain. When you have the brain deficiencies, if it's right brain or left brain deficiencies, the right brain is more like ADD, ADHD, autism. There's a deficiency on the right. The left side is like dyslexia, okay? So by movement, by doing the trampoline or jumping or using the swings, when you stimulate these muscles right here, you're stimulating this side of the brain. And when that happens, then you have more growth on this side. So if you have more growth on this side, that means you see the bigger picture, okay? It also means, like with reading comprehension, the right brain, when it's strong, it can comprehend reading. It also has math, reasoning, and abstract thinking, and it's also the brain that's the safe side of the brain, okay? So what I mean is the right side has to do with, it's like the brake pedal, and the left side is the gas. So it's the cautious side, so it thinks before it does something. And it's also the sensory side. It likes newness and novelties. So I just want to go over the left side so then you know the differences. The left side has to do with the small picture. So instead of seeing the big forest, it sees the trees. It's the verbal communication, which is like reading and writing. And it has to do with the small muscles. So that's like playing a piano. Those are the fine muscles versus the big muscles. And it has to do with liking routineness and sameness. And it has to do also with processing information, like patterns. So we're going to go over some more of this, but I just wanted to go over the difference between the right and the left. And so what happens is the right side of the brain, it grows from 40 days after conception till you're 2 years old, and then the left side of the brain starts, they both grow, but the right side grows more in the beginning for the first 2 years, and then the left side starts growing more than the right side. And then it kind of alters back and forwards, backwards, left and right, until 10 years of age. So the reason why exercise is so important is they've done research, and one of them was a NASA researcher on gravity, on movement, and they noticed that when astronauts come back from the space shuttle or whatever they're doing up in space, they come back with learning disabilities, okay? So what happens is because there's no gravity being forced, there's not that much pressure, they can't really sense that the brain has learning disabilities. They also did this with rats, where they had rats move in different directions and use different muscles. And when the rat was doing these exercises, the brain actually developed even more. So then they sent the rats up to space, and then it decreased. It had learning. It lost its function of what it was doing. Okay. So here at the gym, you've got the trampoline, you've got the swings, you've got the one where you slide all the way
Zip
down.
line.
What is it
Zip
called?
line.
Zip line, yeah. You've got all this, which is incredible, because what you're doing is you're stimulating the brain. You're stimulating the large muscles, which stimulate the right side of the brain, and that's critical for learning. So it's incredible, all the exercises, all the things you have here. Now, if you can send someone up to space and they have learning disabilities, what do you think what happens if a kid just sits and watches TV all day instead of moving here like at the gym? It's the same thing. Maybe not as fast, but it's the same thing.
So when they're on a video game, let's say, that has a lot of a lot of visual stimulation, but all they're doing is moving
Exactly.
their thumbs. That's not.
No, because what you're doing is when you're doing this is the small fine muscles, okay? That's the left brain side of the brain, okay? So you're just getting this side bigger and this side smaller. And what you're trying to do is you want this side to get bigger. And this side gets bigger when you have exercises, jumping jacks, running, the trampoline. Anything to do with the big muscles, you're getting this side bigger. When you're at the computer or you're just playing computer games, you're just getting this side of the brain stronger, and then you're going to have a bigger discrepancy. So you're exactly right about that. And when you're playing these computer games, it's all about patterns. And you're feeding the wrong side of the brain. You want the right side of the brain, which is the creative side. That's the side that is curious, the side that wants new and novelty, not the side that just wants the same thing over and over again. When I work with kids, they always want, a lot of them like the dinosaurs or the reptiles. That's a pattern. That's the left side of the brain.
Or trains.
They're trained.
Cars.
They like dinosaurs. That's the left side. When you work on the right side, then it wants new novelty things, and that's what all the exercise does. So the more you do this, the more this side gets bigger and faster and develop. But the right side is what you want to develop, because this is the gas pedal, and the right side is the brake. This side, the right side knows to stop, to become focused, not to be compulsive. So the more you do this side thinks about what's going on. The more this side gets bigger, the more it's like the gas goes on. It just keeps on going. There's nothing to make it stop. So, so again, sitting in front of a television for hours and hours, these muscles get weak and atrophy, and then this side starts to decrease. They even did research, and then by watching a lot of TV, it increases ADHD by 10% over your lifetime.
And does that matter what time of the day, or it's just
the research? It was just the amount of time. Yeah, because it atrophies, and these muscles stimulate this side. So, also you want to look at the digestion of a child. And so when there's one side or the other side is weak, that also can cause the stomach to have less acidic acid and digestive enzymes. So you know what leaky gut is? Have you ever heard of that? So if we can stimulate the brain more, okay, then what we're trying to do is trying to increase the stomach acid. If there's a deficiency, there's a greater chance of having less stomach acid and less digestive enzymes working actively. And then the muscle tone is also fewer, and then you have fewer contractions. And you need the contractions in the stomach to break down the food mechanically, and then also the circulation is poor. Okay? And so if you can't break down the food, less acidic, the hydrochloric acid and less digestive enzymes, then you have these bigger molecules in the stomach, and then you start to have a breakdown because the lining needs to be tight like this, the stomach lining. And when it's not, it opens up like this. And normally we have nutrients that go into the blood system, but when the gut opens up, then what we have are bigger molecules like undigested food particles or parasites, viruses, whatever. And it gets into the blood system. And if that food particle gets into the blood system, then the body thinks that undigested food is a threat, and then it attacks it. And so then we have all these autoimmune diseases, or we get food sensitivities. In fact, the wheat molecule is very similar to the thyroid. So if someone has a leaky gut and that wheat gets in there, it can go after the thyroid because it looks similar to the thyroid, so it attacks the food and then it starts attacking the thyroid. So
is that why so many people now with the gluten sensitivity and going on the gluten-free diet,
Yeah,
they end
they have
up
to-
losing weight and having, ridding themselves of these digestive issues that
Yeah.
they had just by eliminating.
We have to get rid of certain foods. That's a big culprit. It's the gluten, it's the gliadin in the wheat, and that causes the problem. So what happens is when this is open, then the nutrients are lost because we need to get it down into like a micronutrient, but then we get the big particle, which is not the nutrients. And then we have nutritional deficiencies, we have leaky gut, we get food sensitivities. And believe it or not, when the stomach if it's really healthy, 60% of our immune system's in the gut. 60%. It's amazing. So if you have a weak stomach, that means you have a weak immune system. So the brain is dependent upon the body, and the body is dependent upon the brain. So when we move and we have senses, it feeds the brain information. And then the brain sends information back down to the body to move. So it's both. You need both the movement and then the brain sends the information down. There's a doctor, Philip Teitelbaum, PhD. He's an expert on human patterning. And this is what he states. States that the body is part of the mind and there's no way to separate it. Just as the muscles of the body develop with exercise, the cells in the brain develop with exercise. So it's just not about the exercising of the movement, but when you move, you're exercising the cells of the brain. And then that'll grow. So that's very important. So again, we talked about the TV, it dulls the brain, and then too much TV is bad for the brain and the body. And the computer games, too much of this is not good because you're feeding this side of the brain. You want to feed the right side of the brain because most kids with ADD, ADHD, autism have a weakness on this side, the right side. And so if you keep on building this side, then you're going to have a bigger discrepancy, a bigger change. Okay, so
does that translate into the communication between hemispheres is not as good?
Yeah, it does.
One's more
because
developed.
once one's bigger, then this one starts to tune out, and by getting this bigger, then there's more communication.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So the more we exercise, the more you have a healthier brain. Then also you got to look at the nutrition too, because now the nutrition is not the same way that it was 100 years ago. Basically, now we've overutilized our farmlands, and so the nutrients are not as dense. And now we have over millions of tons of herbicides, pesticides. There's a report that said an average of 250 million tons of pesticides used worldwide. And that doesn't include the millions from the herbicides or the fungicides. And so we have to be careful, to eat as much as possible organic or things without these types of toxins in them. They did another research back in 2004, babies when they were first born, and they tested the umbilical blood for toxicities for 400 specific chemicals. And when they analyzed it, 180 were known for carcinogens. So out of these 10 babies, the blood, they tested it for chemicals, 400 type of chemicals. 180 were known for carcinogens. This is in 2004. 217 were toxic to the brain and the nervous system, and 207 can cause birth defects. So that's why it's important to eat as clean as possible. So, yeah. So again, the right brain has to do with getting the big picture. It has to do with being less impulsive, less anxious, the right brain has to know where it's in space. It has proprioception. So when you have a strong right brain, you know where you are in space. You feel yourself more. When you feel yourself more, then you can know what other people are thinking. When you feel yourself, you know more of what body language is. And so that's why it's important to do like exercises and to stimulate the right side of the brain. The right side of the brain has to do with emotions. The child can feel his own emotions and it reads the emotions of others. And it also senses and it feels its own body. And it's the empathetic brain. So a child can read emotions in himself and other people. Another thing about the right brain is when you have a strong right brain, you can smell and you taste. You're attuned to smell and taste. So when you think about picky eaters, when you can't, if the right brain is deficient, you can't smell or taste. So what that means is, if you smell something, it smells good, you want to eat it. If you have a better taste, you have better taste buds, you want to eat. So when it comes to very picky eaters, it's very hard when you have a deficiency because then you don't taste and you don't smell as much, so you become a very picky eater.
Is that why kids with autism smell things? A lot of kids will smell everything, or they'll lick and want to taste everything.
I know with the foods, they're very picky eaters because the taste is not as refined in the smell, and also there's a lot of habits forming. So some like pizza, and then for more, I was helping one kid. Every evening it was pizza every single night, and every morning it was always waffles and syrup. And then that's due to that pattern recognition.
So even eating different foods,
it's very hard. Yeah.
But do you think it's necessary to change up your diet?
Oh yeah. You want to. The hard part is you want to get them to eat a lot of different foods. Yeah. And you want to break that pattern of the same food over and over again.
Because nutritionally it's not good, or it's
nutritionally, yeah. They always want the same things, and you want to. It's hard. It's very hard, but you want to get them to eat more fruits and vegetables, and keep away from the sodas and the potato chips and any type of like processed foods.
What if they liked good food, but just still wanted the sameness every day? Are you saying that sameness in general is like a sign that the left brain is
it's in a pattern? Yeah.
Is stronger than the right,
yeah.
So they need to develop the right more.
Yes.
So even if it was healthy every morning, oatmeal, or every morning, fruit and healthy,
it
should. You think it needs to vary in order to keep?
Yeah, you want to break up. You want to try to do as many things as you can to get that right brain
to break up
stronger,
any patterns.
To break up patterns. Yeah. So now I'm going to go over some exercises.
Okay.
Some exercises and some other things you can do. And so the right brain is the brain that's the cautious brain, and it wants to keep a child safe. And the right brain wants new things. It wants novelty. So now I'll go over a little bit of the left brain. Again, it sees the forest. It sees the trees instead of the forest. So here, this is an exercise I work with kids. You see the Z, right? Well, what happens is there's some M's, okay? See the M's? Mm-hmm. So a left brain person will automatically see more of the M's. They won't see the Z. But a person with the right brain, when it's strong, they'll see the Z. So what you can do is you can train kids to have them look at the Z. So you want them to see the Z instead of the M's. So I have a whole bunch of these made up, all the alphabet, and have children look at the big letter versus like the little letters that make up the big letter. So that's like the forest or the trees. I want them to see the forest, which is the big letter, versus the trees, which is the little letters. So that's an exercise. So I just wanted to explain more about the right versus the left. Okay. Also for children, another thing to do is out of like magazines, I cut out pictures of strangers, not people they know, and I put them on index cards or on big pieces of paper like this. And like, you remember how I said the right brain wants new and novelty things? So if you have a child look at different pictures of people, but they're different, that stimulates the right brain. So you don't want them to see the same picture over again of a person he knows, because that's repetition, that's pattern recognition. So by looking at pictures of different people that he's never seen before, will help stimulate the right brain. So that's another thing.
So they're usually wanting to watch the same thing,
Yes.
or look at the same thing
Or
over
repeat
and
the
over
same
again.
words, or the same cartoon.
That's a symptom of the disorder, and so to counterbalance that, you just say change it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they have the same words, the same lines, they'll say the same, or maybe watch the same cartoon over and over.
Is it ever okay to let them have that thing that's comforting, that's familiar, that's they've created as the thing that makes them feel?
I think it's okay every once in a while, but you want to try to create new things to get the right side brain up and running even faster. So that's some of the exercises. Okay. Now I'll go over some other exercises later on. So I'm just going to go over this one. So going back to this page here, so we have the right side. It's the big picture. It's knowing the nonverbal communication, knowing body language. It has to do with the large muscles, stimulating the large muscles back here versus the little ones, because this is the left side. And it has to do with interpreting information and sensory. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I will go over some other exercises. Now these are physical exercises, and then I'll just talk a little bit more about some other stuff, and then some nutrition. So I forgot my yoga mat, so I'm just going to use the floor.
I have to.
You remember I talked about the paraspinal muscles here, and they need to be strong and developed, and TV makes them weak, and playing the computers makes them weak. So therefore we have to make them strong, okay? So you've got all these great things like the balancing, the running, and all this stuff. So this is just another thing. And the cool thing about the gym here is that it's fun. Kids, the best time kids learn is when things are fun. We don't learn as much when things are boring. We need to, when things are fun, we learn. So with all this fun stuff here, it's faster learning, and so that's the key. So here's things to exercise, like the spine and the big muscles here, and I'm going to show you these. But with these here, these are fun, and it's at a great level, a higher level. And kids need to move, they need to feel themselves, they need to feel in space, and they learn faster. So here's some exercises just for the spine. And that's to improve the right side of the brain. So this one's basically what we're going to be doing is supine. It's supine bridge core exercises, because we need to exercise the paraspinals. So what the child's going to do is just basically, we need to get this stronger. So we're going to be on the ground like this, and then you're going to have your child just come up like this, and then just stay this way for like 30 seconds. And what this does is that we've got to get the spine and the buttocks stronger, so it'll stimulate the right side of the brain. So that's the first exercise. You do it for like 30 seconds, or how long the child can do it, like a minute. Then you relax, and then you do it like for another 4 times. So that's the first one you start with first. That's the first level. And then the next one is we just make it a little harder. So after they do that for a week or a month, whatever it takes for them to be comfortable doing that, then you go to the next one. Your hands are going to be on the chest, and then they're just, instead of having this for stability, the hands are going to be on the chest. So it's a little bit harder because it's more unstable, but then it's working harder. So that's the second exercise. So that's the second exercise. Now the third exercise is the same thing, but a little bit more challenging, because the hands are going to be back on the ground, and then the spine's going to be off, but you're going to have one leg up like about 1 or 2 inches like this. And then you go to the other side. And that's harder because it's putting more stress on the muscles, so you're working the muscles harder. And that's the third level. So you just start off with the easy one, then you graduate to the next harder one, then the third level. And by doing that, you're really stimulating all the paraspinal muscles, which help improve the right side of the brain. So another exercises have to do with, we're going to be going prone now, okay? And so we did, all we're doing in this way is, instead of going on the back, we're going on the belly, and the child is just going to be like this, laying down, and then they're going to raise one hand up for like 30 seconds, or what he can or she can do. And then you're going to do the other hand, and then you're going to do the leg, and then you're going to do the other leg. And so once they graduate and they can do that, then the next one is they're going to do the same thing, but they're going to use both hands. So they're going to be like this. Or after they do that, then they can go back and do this with their legs. So that's the second level. The third level, after they graduate from that, then they can do both like this. And then by doing this, you're really working your spine, your spinal muscles. So those are like the 3 levels of the bridge, and then going on the belly and doing the prone exercises. And again, it's like we talked about the astronaut when they didn't move. They were up there, there's no gravity, they can't feel their body. They had learning disorders when they came back down. So by doing this, you're using gravity to stimulate the body to help improve the right side of the brain. Some other exercises is just running in place. You want to put like an X with a tape or a chalk or something and have them run, okay? So they're focusing on staying on the X. So that's, remember how I talked about the right side has to do with paying attention? So by running, you're exercising, breathing, cardio, but at the same time you're focusing on staying on the X instead of running everywhere. You can do the same thing with jumping jacks. You mark an X and have them do jumping jacks. And you can also do the same thing by just having the X and then just jumping. Another exercise is for the right side of the brain, is by having your right leg be bent and then trying to balance. Because when you're on your left side here, this side stimulates this side of the brain. So by balancing on your left foot, it stimulates the right side of the brain. And so that's another exercise you can do. So those are some basic exercises to help with the right side of the brain.
How often would you suggest?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day, just like for like 30 seconds to a minute, but just continuing to do those and to get them stronger. And those will help stimulate these paraspinal muscles. When I was talking about the brain growth, 40 days from conception to the first 2 years, the right brain grows first, right? Up to 2 years. Well, that makes sense also because the first thing the child needs to do is to turn and to move, right? They need the big muscles. When they're first born, they can't move that much. So the right brain's growing more, and that has to do with the large muscles. So basically what we're saying is we gotta get that side bigger by using the exercises. As far as the diet, let me get back to my notes over here.
Can I ask if you think is there an age range, or is there a, by the time there, you said the brain develops fully by 10.
Yeah.
So
So.
are these exercises important after 10?
Oh, yeah, yeah. The brain, it has to do with neuroplasticity, so the brain can always change. So we want to consistently do these things.
So you meant structurally it develops by 10.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the size and the
size,
shape
yeah.
and everything it's going to be.
But we want to always improve neuroplasticity. Even senior citizens, a lot of senior citizens can be helped just by doing these. I do cerebellum tests, and I test the cerebellum of a person by doing, you know how like if you get
Sobriety
stopped by a
test,
cop,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they make you do this, and you're like this.
Yeah,
You're
well, I
drunk.
don't know, but yeah.
That's the cerebellum.
Never has happened
I
to
know.
me.
That's the cerebellum. It's dysfunctional because you drank alcohol and your cerebellum's not working. That's the same thing with this too. So there's certain exercises that I give to people to help improve the cerebellum, because the cerebellum works the same way with if the right brain is deficient, then the left side of the cerebellum is weak. So then there's cerebellum exercises. So yes, that's why when we get older, you know, when we say someone trips or falls, well, maybe they're uncoordinated because it could be because the cerebellum's off. So we want to do these type of exercises to improve the cerebellum. So as far as diet, does matter. And what happens is you could be eating all the right foods, but there could be malabsorption or maldigestion. So you always want to do everything possible to, you want to make sure that you have clean, good food, and if they have a leaky gut, you want to get that sealed by eating the best food possible without the toxins. Also, the certain foods, these are the biggies. So you know wheat. They always talk about the wheat. Mm-hmm. It's the gluten. It's the gliadinin. It's the gluten that we need to be careful about. It's not the wheat, but it's the gluten. So when you buy food and it says wheat free, you want to be careful. You want it to say gluten free. Or if it's milk, you want to say, instead of saying milk free, that you want to make sure it says casein free, because that's what causes the problem. And so what happens is children can be addicted to milk because when the gut lining opens up and that milk goes through the gut into the blood system, if the gut barrier is open, the brain barrier can be open too. And then the milk, the protein, gets into the brain, and it's like an opiate. We have these opiate receptors, and then it's like an addiction. So some kids just want milk, lots and lots and lots of milk. And so if there is an addiction to milk, you want to not have them drink the milk, because then it feeds, it's like an opiate. Same thing with wheat. So the biggies are like the wheat, the milk, soy, and corn, then yeast. Those are the biggies. Soy is, I think, pretty much in the United States, it's all genetically modified now. So those are the biggies. So those are the main things. Do you have any questions?
I thought it was great. I kind of asked mine as I went along.
Yeah.